This video is going to be one that, to be honest with you, I wish I wasn't making. I wish that I didn't have to make a video and try to speculate or project how the Ravens could survive without Marlon Humphrey. He's one of my favorite players. I think he's the leader of this defense and possibly the leader of the team. How do you account for the loss of Marlon Humphrey? You don't. You just don't. I mean, you cannot replace him in a one-on-one manner. You just can't. I would be comfortable if 1 year ago, a Ravens fan, if a Ravens fan said, Marlon Humphrey kind of fell off, he's not a number one corner, replacing him one for one is possible. Because, now look, I would have disagreed with that a year ago. I'm talking about a year ago now. But the reality is in 2021, he did not play up to the standards that we have for him, the standards that he set, with his ridiculous play since being drafted by the Ravens. But that is not the case heading into the 2023 season. He played at an extremely high level in 2022. Don't listen to anyone who tells you different. Rating services, professional football, I don't care. Marlon Humphrey played at an extremely high level. He was avoided for probably 85% of the times he was on the field and had no let up in his physicality, his commitment, his tight coverage skills. Nothing. Imagine showing up to your job 85% of the time and they tell you to do nothing. There'll be some mental letdown in all of us, and Marlon Humphrey showed none. Don't listen to anyone who tells you he didn't play extremely well last year. No, he didn't have 6 picks, but he provided great coverage, was very physical against blockers, made tackles across the line of scrimmage. I'm going to show you some film of him here in a moment. This video, to me, is going to be about trying to replace him. I hate to use a Moneyball statement, but trying to replace him in the aggregate and also with smart coaching, smart preparation. Because I just don't think you can replace him one for one. All right, losing Marlon Humphrey would have required an adjustment regardless of if we brought back Marcus Peters, okay? It would still draw out fears from fans. Losing Marlon Humphrey would have still required an adjustment if we drafted Jacorian Bennett or we drafted Keely Ringo. Even if Rock Ya-Sin, Trayvon Mullen, Pepe Williams were all healthy, and we had Marcus Peters or Jacorian Bennett, we would still have to make an adjustment for the way that we play football. The difference will be we might not need to make a personnel move. And there's nothing wrong with people saying we need to make a personnel move. I mean, I agree too. The reality is we don't currently have any of those guys that I just named available, not one of them, right now as it stands on Wednesday, August 16th. Now, look, Rock Ya-Sin and JAD, they're both apparently due back soon, but we're still very thin at corner right this moment. And that's what, we react to as Ravens fans or the fans of any team. You react to right now. But I really don't like those statements. If the season started today, I'm going to be honest with you. If the season started today, Marlon Humphrey's probably on the field. He's that kind of guy. I mean, if you don't already know that about him, you just haven't been watching him as closely as the rest of us have. But certainly as it stands today, August 16th, looking forward to September 10th. I think that's the opening date against the Texans. We are out of healthy corners, and something needs to be done. With all those guys healthy, and let's just get this done off the top. I'm someone who wanted Marcus Peters back. I think most of us did. But that didn't happen. Whether it was a bad system fit, I did think he played better later in the season, and I did think he played better in the higher, the more important games, particularly against the Bengals. I think the Ravens are in good position to be multiple in coverage if everyone's there. The problem with what I'm going to advocate for here in a moment is we're going to be using inexperienced guys or guys that are new to the system. One month from now, if everyone's healthy except for Marlon Humphrey, are we going to be able to be multiple? Are we going to be able to execute multiple coverages from snap to snap? I don't know. A lot has to happen in terms of health and of the players, and a lot has to happen in terms of the teaching on the field. I'm going to let some Marlon Humphrey film run here. This is all from 2022. I understand the lead into this has been significant. My apologies if you don't like the podcast style. Um, I'm going to show some Marlon Humphrey film, and then I'm going to show 3 or 4 specific coverages that I think the Ravens should either utilize more or avoid, or utilize sparingly, I guess I should say. All of the coverages I'm going to show you are coverages the Ravens have used and are going to use in 2023. The difference will be, how much we use them without Marlon Humphrey and when we use them. Look, we host the Texans on September 10th. Personally, I hope the Ravens can address the corner position via signing or a trade before then. But look, there's no way anybody in the AFC helps us out. There's no way it would be a unique situation. Somebody who's got surplus depth at corner and a player that they don't plan on utilizing and are probably going to cut. And so they would trade to us to get some value back in return. Hopefully that makes sense. That's the way I see it. I don't think we're going to get a high-level experienced corner unless we have to give up a lot in exchange or in return to get him. As I understand it, we have about 8 or 9 million available. And I'm not a big roster construction guy in terms of talking about it. I mean, that's for draft season. We all do it during the draft season. We do have surplus value, though, at certain positions. Don't laugh. We have surplus value at wide receiver. We might have surplus value at running back. Do we have a player at either of those positions that we could package with a 4th rounder and get a corner in return? Yes, we do. I don't know how good that corner would be. A number 1 corner, no. I don't talk about number 1 and number 2 corners anyway. Probably we could get back someone who's a young guy that's inconsistent, who was drafted late, or not drafted. In our Discord, Frank always talks about Eli Ricks. He was talking about him before the draft too, so shout out to him, give him credit there. He's a young guy, but the problem with someone like Eli Ricks is that the team controls his contract for a lengthy period of time. I think he was undrafted. He had a pick 6 against the Ravens last week, if you don't know who I'm talking about. One of the number of young corners that the Eagles have that, could be ready to step up for them if they had a situation evolve like we have in Baltimore now. But the problem with trying to say that we should trade for someone like that is he's cheap. He's under team control. For them to give him up doesn't make sense from their standpoint. I think the Ravens tried to do the same thing. They tried to stack up young guys that were drafted 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Pepe Williams, Caillou Blue Kelly, Brandon Stevens. We got a couple of veterans, Kevon Seymour, Darryl Worley. I personally think Darryl Worley is a better football player than a lot of people give him credit for. But, neither one of those guys is someone that we want guarding a 6'3", 6'4" starting level wide receiver in the NFL if we're up by 1 and they're going for 2 to win the game, like Jacksonville last year. Hate to pick on Brandon Stevens, but it was no surprise that they targeted Brandon Stevens on that 2-point conversion down in Jacksonville last year to lose the game. And it's no surprise that they scored. I mean, I like Brandon Stevens. I root for him. But in any case, this video is not necessarily about roster speculation, but I guess I had to do it to some level. Do I want us to go get a corner? Yes. Would I be willing to package a young player from this roster and a fourth round pick to get a good corner in return? Yes, I would. Am I going to spend any more time speculating? Well, no. I've already spent enough time, so my apologies for that. What I am going to do is outline what I think the Ravens could do on the field and in the meeting rooms in preparation to survive without Marlon Humphrey, no matter who else is out there. But thinking about Rock Ya-Sin, JAD, those guys being back healthy. All right, so we'll get to some film, and I'm going to tell you up front what some of the coverages are. I'm going to let some of the film run, and then I'll talk to you about why I think it could help the Ravens to play these coverages more or less. You already know what the first one's going to be, or you should, if you've paid a lot of attention in terms of what the Ravens played against the Bengals in Week 5 last year. Tampa 2. Play more Tampa 2. We used it a lot in 2022. By the way, the corners are going to be spot shadowed in these coverages. So you'll see the area of the field they're being asked to cover. So this allows the corners, no matter who they are, to have a zone mentality, to be able to push receivers inside, even though we're not getting a push inside up there, but that receiver's insisting upon an outside release. Sometimes you ride them out of bounds, or sometimes you just ride them to the sideline and then settle in your flats. Point is, it doesn't ask the corners to cover deeper, higher leverage parts of the field. I really don't even like that phrase, higher leverage, but some people use it a lot for whatever reason. Allows you to have a zone mentality with the corners, settle in the flats, Let the pass rushers attack. Yes, it's generally used on 3rd and long in the NFL. You can use it against running teams. Here's the Bears running it against the San Francisco 49ers, I think last year. You got to make tackles in front. It forces teams to throw the ball underneath. Again, you're going to get spot shadows of the corners in most of these situations. One of the corners here, one of the corners here, 2 safeties deep, and then a Mike linebacker or someone in the middle of the field, running the pipe, as they call it, between the hashes. The Ravens are going to play it. They played it in 2022. They really unlocked it in a very fortunate manner. A lot of the rest of the NFL was playing Tampa 2 against the Bengals. So the Ravens just co-signed it in week 5 and played it, and lo and behold, it worked. Now the Ravens did it in a unique way. They got to the Tampa 2 platform in a myriad of different ways, multiple ways to get to it. Now let's talk about the 2023 schedule. Do you want to play Tampa 2 against the Texans in week 1? Probably not. Texans have an extremely physical running back, Dameon Pierce. They're building a physical team, focused on running the football, play action. That might not be the week to run Tampa 2. You might want to run it in week 2, though, when you go to Cincinnati and face the Bengals. The problem with that is the Bengals have seen it. They saw it last year a lot. They did adjust to using it. And by the way, the Texans played it a lot last year, so it'd be interesting if the Ravens played Tampa 2 a lot in week 1 against the Texans. Texans coach last year was Lovie Smith of the Chicago Bears, big Tampa 2 guy. I think they only gave up 16 touchdowns passing last year, they being the Texans. What's the weakness of it? Stopping the run. And I think the Texans got run over often. Looking at the Ravens' early schedule before Marlon comes back, a heavier usage of Tampa 2 is possible in week 2. I don't know about week 3. I do have 2 possessions saved from the Colts preseason offense. Haven't had the chance to study them yet. Week 1 might not be the week to use it. Now, when we get, once we get through week 3, presumably Rock Ya-Sin, Marlon Humphrey, J.A.D. are all back. Maybe there's someone else that we have acquired. It's going to require the coaches to adjust when to use Tampa 2. And it would require some players on the team to adjust in or out of cover 2, in or out of cover 2, meaning cover 2 is what's called, it's a different formation, there's a different threat, we got to switch to a different coverage. Players have to do that. I thought the Ravens got a whole lot better in 2022 at that. The pre-snap communication was there. It seemed to be something that, A, the coaches taught, and B, the players took a hold of and grabbed it and took off. Now in 2021 and before that, didn't see as much pre-snap communication in terms of changing coverages and pre-snap calls. All right, moving on. Here's one maybe we want to avoid. 3 deep, 3 under, zone blitz. Now, it doesn't mean you can't play it. It just means you got to play it at the right time. All of these, I'm going to highlight the corners, but you got 3 under and you got 3 deep. I don't know if you guys can see the free safety there on the screen. Yeah, you can see them a little bit. And so, do the math. 3 and 3 is 6. You got 5 players left. It's a 5-man rush. You may want to avoid it against certain quarterbacks, Brady, Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, if we ever see him. But you may want to use it against certain personnel groups or certain formations. Again, it's a 5-man rush, allows the corners to, get off, play 3 deep, someone else to cover underneath, and presumably, with a 5-man rush, allows the corners to get eyes on the quarterback. How does it benefit the corners? It allows them to get eyes on the quarterback and have someone hopefully get pressure on the quarterback on the offense because it's a 5-man rush. You've got that time and space consideration. How much time is the quarterback going to get? And when I say space, what I mean is you only have 6 players covering the entire width and depth of the field. Let's just go ahead and draw a box, very shoddily drawn, so forgive me. You only have 6 players covering, so you have more space to cover with only 6 players. Time and space. Not giving him enough time, the quarterback, to find the open space. Against certain quarterbacks, you may want to run this more often. Against Brady, Burrow, Rodgers, whoever, you may not want to. So let's talk about the Ravens' schedule. We may run this in week 1. It's a little bit more higher risk here and a little bit more higher reward because you have a 5-man rush. Now, some of these quarterbacks, when they see anything that's 3 deep, whether it's cover 3, which I'll talk about in a moment, or whether it's 3 deep, 3 under, they're going to take a shot up top. Some of these guys, Andy Dalton, They're going to get rid of the ball early. When I say take a shot up top, I'm talking about let's let this run. We're going to get this to the next one. So there's a little bit wider view. All right, perfect. I think this is actually one where Brady goes up top. So I think you got Mike Evans down here against Marlon, who unfortunately we're not going to see on the field for a while. Specifically, Joe Burrow. He's going to go up top anytime he sees a 3-deep coverage. That's what he was known for in 2001. Going up top. It's basically a one-on-one from, the bottom of the numbers to the sideline. It's one-on-one. It's not a one-on-one coverage. Technically, it's a zone, coverage, but really we would say it's a match coverage, but that's a topic for another day. But you can see the space that's there. If the quarterback is willing to throw it up, well, is Joe Burrow willing to do that? Yes. Do the Texans have talent to do that? Yes, they do. They have Nico Collins. Nico Collins, a big wide receiver, 6'4". He'll be a guy that C.J. Stroud tries to get the ball to, down the field, especially towards the sideline. This deeper over concept is also one that works. It's worked against the Ravens for years in our 3 deep, 3 under. Some would call it flood. In the next play that shows up, it's a sail concept. But in any case, it's running the corner off, making him and the free safety decide or communicate, how are we going to handle this vertical and then this here. Usually you're giving this defender to the side of the deep over. You're giving that defender some bait in front of him. It's essentially, you're high-lowing that defender. One route underneath of him and then one route over top of him. Ravens would, have to decide as coaches how often they want to play that coverage. Lets the corners get off and maybe protects them, gives them space, but also if you have a quarterback who's willing to throw the ball up, I don't mean just a Hail Mary, but if you have a quarterback who's willing to throw the ball up, then it also puts them in a one-on-one outside the numbers. All right, next one. Cover 3. Good old cover 3. 3 deep is normally what you're seeing in cover 3. So you're talking about 2 deep corners and 1 deep free safety, and then 4 underneath droppers. So what's the difference? You only have a 4-man rush, as opposed to the one that I just described to you, 5-man rush, 3 deep, 3 under. Same principle applies to the outside somewhat. Now, I will tell you this, the Ravens played a lot of cover 3 late in 2022 and played it well. They played it more as the season progressed. I didn't see as much cover 3, even though this is week 3 against the Patriots here. Didn't see as much cover 3 early in the season as I did late. Some would say you might avoid it versus Burrow. And in fact, if I was talking before the 2022 season, I would absolutely have said that. But what the Ravens did last year by mixing and matching coverages so much, Burrow didn't take those one-on-one shots. Well, why? Well, there wasn't always time, as you can see here. This is your 2 corners. I don't have them spot shadowed, by the way. This is your 2 corners. That's the responsibility they have. That's, that route's not taken vertical, so he's not going on that path. That's true. And then your free safety in the middle of the field with 4 underneath droppers. I think I rewind this one back, I believe. So the Ravens get to the cover 3 platform by blitzing Queen. Some of y'all seen this play already. Moving Roquan to that pass drop, dropping Tyus Bowser back. So they're basically giving you a switch cover 3 by blitzing Queen, which plays to his strengths. You can see the 4 under, 3 deep delineation. Is Burrow going to have time to get the ball to those outside receivers? Well, that all depends on your opinion. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. He didn't last year in some of these examples. That's why I'm showing them to you. It'll be a constant decision for the Ravens coaches to make. Can we get there with a 4-man rush? Do we want to play cover 3 from that 4-man rush, or do we want to play Tampa 2, which is the first coverage that I showed you? I think that it's possible the Ravens avoid the Tampa 2 in week 2, and unless Burrow's playing. If Burrow's not playing, I'll be very interested to see what the Ravens play. That'll be a dynamic that'll, change the way the Ravens coaches approach that game and the way the Bengals coaches approach it too. If Burrow plays versus if he doesn't play in week 2 could change the coverage dynamic. So there's a lot going on there. I will say this, in 2022, Burrow didn't get as much time to just go up top. Although you saw from the one where Brady connected with Mike Evans in this little clip right here, that Brady didn't need a lot of time. And Kyle Hamilton was coming free off the edge. Didn't matter. Brady still threw it up to Mike Evans, who caught it against Marlon. Cover 3 have to be used some. However, depending on who's playing quarterback for the Bengals in week 2, might want to avoid it. Week 1 against the Texans, this might be our coverage. This might be our coverage against them. 8-man front, try to stop the run. That's a simplistic way of looking at it. But it gets an 8th player in the box, whoever we want that to be, probably Kyle Hamilton, to be honest with you. And then allows the corners to play off with some space and hopefully not get beat deep. If the quarterback has time to beat us deep, then the ball's probably going to be thrown down the sidelines. Or the deep over concept that I've showed you a couple times. All right. Now, this one I'm not going to spend as much time on, to be honest with you, but this is what allows the Ravens to be multiple, and this is what slows down the processing of quarterbacks at times. This is a split field coverage. I believe down here to the bottom, you've got 2 read or palms. Up at the top side, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. It looks to me like a different quarters call, a different split field coverage call. So what I mean is, and I've done many videos about this. If you've been around my channel for a while, you should have some knowledge of it. What the Ravens are looking for is something like this, an out by 2 and a vertical by 1. That line's probably off your screen a little bit. So the way they would play this is the safety would get off, and he would play the deep half, essentially. This linebacker, actually it's a nickel defender, Pepe Williams, he would wall number 2, meaning he would try to not let 2, cross his face without being redirected. And then Marcus Peters is going to drop back. And as soon as he reads 2 here coming out, he's going to jump it. And you'll actually see Marcus Peters' path change. He's going for the pick 6. This is a coverage suited for Marcus Peters. This is a half field coverage. The top side, I don't think, is playing 2 read, but it also depends on the routes that are run. Watch Marcus Peters' path. You see his path here? He's not running to the receiver. He's running here. He's trying to pick this. And then he realizes, oh, the ball's going to beat me there. Let me adjust to the receiver. That's 2 read. He's reading 2. Some people call it palms. He's reading 2. This is a number 2 receiver. You start from the outside in. Number 1, number 2. The safety has also reading 2. Now, he might be looking at the quarterback here as well. But he's reading 2, and he's allowed to jump it because the safety's over the top to play 1 vertical. There's only 2 threats there. So let's widen this up a little bit. Tampa 2, cover 3. Split field quarters coverages, which there's multiple split field calls that they would use. I'm only showing you one of them. This is the one that I think I can explain the best. There's some other ones like EA does a much better job. Match Quarters on YouTube does a much better job of explaining split field coverage calls. So check those guys out. But it allows the Ravens to be multiple and slows up the quarterback's processing a little bit. I do think you'll see split field coverages in week 1 against the Texans and some against the Bengals. The problem is a lot of split field coverages just have the corners man on 1, but it does have the safeties closer to the corner, meaning if you're cover 3 and you've only got 1 middle of the field safety and someone throws it up like that vertical that you saw to Mike Evans completed by Brady against Marlon Humphrey, then you're not going to have help from that middle of the field safety. The quarterback's going to throw it on a trajectory and in a place where the safety can't help. But look at these guys now. If the same ball was thrown up the sidelines, basically, I don't want to say just a jump ball because that's ignorant of the way NFL quarterbacks process things and where they try to put the ball. It's too simplistic. But these 2 safeties are able to help on vertical stuff. They are. We have multiple split field coverage calls. Again, go check out EA's channel. He's got at least 4 videos explaining it. This combined with Tampa 2, combined with cover 3, it all sounds great, right? You're going to protect the corners. You're not going to ask a whole lot of them. The player's got to be able to execute it. And that's the issue. When you've got young players, when you've got guys who don't have as many reps or as many snaps on the field as Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, and others, can you be as multiple against Joe Burrow? It's going to be difficult to pull off. You might need more hard-coded coverages, Tampa 2 or regular cover 2 or cover 3. Hopefully I'm saying that in a way that makes sense. You can't be predictable, but you can't try to do too many things such that the players can't execute it. Hopefully that makes sense. Week 1 might be a cover 3 coverage, for the most part. That might be the predominant coverage. Week 2, look, the Bengals have an improved O-line. Joe Burrow plays in week 2. You might have to play Tampa 2, but that still might not work. Your 4-man rush might not get there. It might not bother him. And their improved O-line, Tampa 2 is weaker against the run. We might not be able to stop the run even at 11 personnel. So that just illustrates how good the Bengals are, how threatening their offense is, and if we don't have Marlon Humphrey, how shorthanded we'll be. Last one is, I think, a more just cover two, and you're getting a nice read by Queen and Humphrey down here. This is, of course, the strip sack by Ojabo. If there's not pressure in Burrow's face, he's going to throw this ball up top to, I think, T. Higgins, who's got Darryl Worley to his side. And you can see that Worley's going to, and Worley played well this day, by the way. Worley's going to hesitate for a moment, and then Higgins is going to be able to get over the top of him. I think this is just a hard-coded cover two. I don't think this is a quarter split field call, to be honest with you. I usually look at the safeties' hips and what the safeties are staring at. But in any case, you got to be multiple. You got to figure out what the right coverage is for each situation. That's going to be harder to do without Marlon Humphrey. It'll fall on the coaches to prepare the guys correctly to be able to switch in and out of coverages, and the players on the field to recognize when to check out of a coverage that puts them in a bad spot. There's no easy answer. There's no fix. It would be great if you could just say, hey, we're going to go out and get this guy or that guy, and we're going to fix it. I'm not into that. I don't play Madden anymore. I used to. I don't play. There ain't no such thing as creative players out here. So I don't think there's an easy answer, a quick fix, unless you're, wanting to give up Isaiah Likely and a third-round pick or second-round pick next year. Yeah, you could probably get a pretty good player in return. But now you don't have Isaiah Likely. I think you've got to be multiple. I think the players have got to be responsible and prepared each week. And really, it's going to come down to coaching. Players' execution is always what they talk about. They always use that word execution. We didn't execute. I looked up, for the purposes of this video, I looked up the definition of the word coach. I got 3. So I'm not talking about a coach like, you ride in with a horse and buggy and such. A coach, to train or instruct. The second one, to prompt or urge. And the third one really struck me, and that's why I'm reading it out to you. To give someone extra teaching. That's what it's going to require for the Ravens to get. I'm focusing on the first 3 weeks. For the Ravens to get out of there at least 2-1 with the current, DB group that we have, missing Marlon, it's going to require something extra. Starting with the coaches, then the players, and the offense not turning the ball over and scoring points as well, which I think they'll do that. You guys, let me know if you enjoyed the video. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there talking about trade for this guy, trade for that guy. No problem. If we do that, I'll celebrate just like y'all. I just don't feel like that's a good use of my time. I would prefer to offer whatever skills I do have and show the film, actual film of the Ravens playing some of these coverages, playing some of them well, and let you know it's not easy to be multiple. It's going to require a lot of teaching. And the possibility also exists that when you try to be too multiple, you open yourself up for big plays. And a reason why I mention that is this. The last time we played a significant amount of time without Marlon Humphrey, I believe, was Miami week 2 last year. I think he missed 14 snaps in the third and fourth quarter. And I think the Dolphins scored 2 touchdowns while he was off the field. MC Abukari, I think on Twitter, said that he missed some snaps against the Bucs. I think I do recall that. And someone else said that they thought he missed the end of the game against the Jags. I didn't think he missed the end of the game, but I did think he missed part of it. But in any case, when Marlon Humphrey has missed time, we have struggled. There's just no doubt about it. Look at the end of 2021. Our DB group right now, as it stands today, rivals some of the groups we threw out there at the end of 2021. The difference is we're going to be better coached in terms of being multiple. And we're not going to ask DBs to play straight man with no safety help on 4th and 11. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. In any case, I think we can survive without Marlon, but I think it's going to take something extra from the coaches and players, and then maybe the Ravens to try to figure out a way to acquire someone who can help in the interim. Appreciate you guys' time. If you liked the video, let me know. I decided to do this just after seeing all the consternation and anxiety on Twitter. I wanted to say to people, hey, it's possible that the Ravens could hold people to 24 points or less and win football games 31-21 instead of winning games 34-14, which is what we all want, right? It ain't going to be easy. And I think some people even said that yesterday in a video when we were talking about the Ravens joint practice with Washington. In any case, this is the video I decided to produce for you guys, try to show you specific coverages. The end of it, I probably could have gone on a little longer with split field coverages, but I'm going to be honest and straight up with you again. I think there's other people that do a better job explaining the split field coverages than me. There's also a guy on Twitter named Jerry Gordon who has an amazing split field coverages book that I would recommend to you. It's on Amazon. I think it's called Understanding Split Field Coverages. He's an excellent coach. He's coaching in Italy right now, someone that I've looked up to for a long time in terms of helping people online, helping coaches that he never met understand certain concepts and how to utilize them with players, with football players, no matter the age and no matter their background. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think that other Ravens fans would enjoy this video, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this video get more reach.